In this summit session, I want to talk about one of the big five. That's the title out there. It says Big Five Spotlight on Allergies. We get on the farm, I get a lot of people that come to me for some of the most top issues. People are always looking for answers. How do I address? And it's usually a symptoms spot. It's a symptoms focus because that's what we've been taught, is how can I make this symptom go away? And with allergies, it's itchy, runny eyes, or sneezing or coughing, and general inflammation. When we're talking about sort of a seasonal allergy, then we deal with deeper allergies, which has become much more popular. It's not popular. It's much more predominant in our culture now to have very serious anaphylactic responses on the allergy spectrum. And this conversation has been so loaded with judgment because people who live in who were born in the generation before mine, their experiences with allergies were that maybe one person in their entire class had an allergy to a food. And in my generation, it was maybe a little bit more, but it just wasn't very often that you came across somebody who had allergies. Now it's pretty much everything we ever talk about. Everybody has some sort of allergy. And if they weren't born with an allergy, they have created an allergy over the time period of their life. My father was not born with a milk allergy, but when he got into his 50s, he suddenly had an allergy to milk. And I see that a lot. So the term of allergies is sort of a catch-all, and it can be everything from something really mild that you kind of sneeze a little bit, to something that is very deadly serious. And those people of the generation maybe before me and maybe of my generation often believe that it's sort of a made up situation, that someone is wearing gloves out in public or doesn't want your child to have a peanut butter sandwich next to theirs at lunch. And it seems like we've reached this we want to put kids in bubbles. And yes, that is happening. We are unacceptably protecting our kids from damage. The problem with that view is that there are many, many, many people in our society today for whom exposure to a nut is a deadly thing. And that's why that is. It's not just that little Johnny's parents don't want them to have a sneezing attack. Little Johnny's parents would like him to come home from school that day. It's a really serious situation because of what we've done to our bodies. So I decided on picking allergies to discuss in this session because it is so prevalent and it is getting worse and worse and worse. And there are a lot of reasons for this. I'm going to try and talk about some of the most simplistic ones without getting too far down into the rabbit holes of why. Because that's something that we talk about on my membership. We will discuss much deeper, and I have a lot of different series on this that are, if not published, they are coming, discussing this more and more. So I'm gonna talk high level, and hopefully it's enough to give you some new directions to think if you are struggling. So I think one of the first things to understand about allergies that we often think if you're talking about an allergy where maybe you break out in a rash, or your tongue gets dots on it, or you have difficulty, you have nasal passages that swell, you have irritating things about an allergy, and some people have life quality things where they kind of have to shut themselves in the house for harvest season if they live around farms and they have certain allergies. So we're going to talk about that angle of allergies. Instead of talking about addressing symptoms first, let's talk about the base of that. Why are we getting allergies? We have to look at the body systems involved. And anytime you hear me talk, those of you who have come to talks or been in my membership, you know I'm always going to go back to digestion. Digestion is a big problem here in how we are handling the world. Allergies are really just an overreactivity of the body to an outside stimulus that it has determined to be a threat. In a simplistic manner, we are not supposed to have undigested foreign proteins running around in our bloodstream. But because of how we're living our lives, a lot of us have those proteins running around in our bloodstream. We're not handling them appropriately. And so our body, because it detects that, that's a situation that's not right. That's a situation that we have a design to protect ourselves against. And so that design gets triggered. We have to look at our digestive health, and we have to look at primarily our liver health, and then in some aspects we have to look at our endocrine system. So I'm going to start with the liver, because the work that the products that I've made specifically for allergies over the years have focused on the liver. Your liver is in charge of filtering extra proteins out of the blood. If we think about the liver, there's a lot of different metaphors that I like to use. So let's see if I use the headwaters metaphor here. If you see this big wetlands that's before a river or an ocean as our liver, before the water works its way through all of that marshy area, it is going through the marsh, and silt and extra things that we don't want to get out into our ocean is being pulled into the marshland, so that the water that gets all the way through has been filtered. That's what our liver does. Our blood supply goes through the liver as if it's a marshy wetland, and it pulls out things that shouldn't be there. It cleans our blood. If you're a car person, you can think of your liver as a car filter. It's filtering out what is coming in as we're driving down the road. Things that shouldn't go into the engine, things that shouldn't go into the delicate inner workings of the car. So the unfortunate thing is that our liver is tasked with a heinous amount of jobs. It's involved in our cholesterol. It's involved in our blood clotting ability. It's involved in our hormonal balance, and the list goes on and on and on. The liver is very, very important. So we want to keep it clean. We don't want it to get sludgy. But the more we put into our body that is not supposed to be there, so the more food we eat that the body has to go through the digestion and say, that's plastic, I can't use it, I can't build the body out of it, so I'm going to put it over here and I'll make the body filters take that out. I'm just going to focus on what I'm supposed to use here in the digestive system. The more of that kind of pile of things that the body isn't supposed to have in it that we make, and we do that by walking down a city street. We breathe in toxic elements that aren't supposed to be there, and our filters take care of that. We get it in our water innocently. We get it from our soil. There are so many ways that we can put things into our filters. Obviously, the big one is what we eat. So the liver is tasked with filtering out those things that don't belong. And eventually, just like the marsh, if you've ever seen where a marsh just kind of fills up and the water stops being able to get through it, or the car filter gets full, once it gets full, it stops filtering. And we have to do something to unclog the filter. In the case of in the body, we have the filter gets full, and the blood doesn't stop flowing. I mean, we don't have a huge stop in our circulatory system at the liver. It just kind of, it goes around. It doesn't get filtered. And so what we have is a lot of what I like to call dirty blood, and that's sort of a hard word to get around people's minds to get around, but it's dirty. It's got a lot of things in it that shouldn't be there. Proteins that are undigested from a digestive tract that isn't working. Toxins that are coming in from all over. Toxins that are coming in from our food, what we drink. And all of those things are going around and around in the bloodstream because it's not getting stopped in the liver. So one of the first things that we can do is to help the liver to decongest. It's kind of like blowing your nose. If you get all congested and you've got gunk in there, you aren't going to be able to get oxygen through there. It's not working as designed. You've got to blow your nose so that you can breathe and filter again. That is what we need to do first and foremost for those common allergies that are not life-threatening. So this is what I do with my allergency product. We've had it in the honey. It's in my Sweet Remedies book on how to use it and what it is. But I'm going to tell you what's in this because these are important for a naturally addressing your allergies. Nettles, dandelion root, orange peel, eleuthero, and wild yam. All of those plants are active plants to use for allergies. Orange peel has recently shown in studies to reduce allergy symptoms. Nettles are antihistamine. They contain an antihistamine, so they are calming down the body. They're calming down that reaction. Histamine runs out. It is something that we create in the body, and it is a good thing. Histamine is part of our defense. It goes out, it creates localized inflammation, and it prevents us from having more damage than we should in a given situation. Histamine, because it's found at the presence of, or at the site of a problem in our modern medicine, it's identified as the problem. So we tend to, whatever chemical compound or whatever bodily substance that's created that we find at the site of damage, modern medicine often names that as the culprit. We do that with cholesterol. Cholesterol is another thing that the body produces, and we need cholesterol. We need it to protect us from inflammations in our blood vessels and from holes being blown out. We don't want to stop cholesterol production. We don't want to stop histamine production. What happens in a body that gets imbalanced is that some of the things that we have, that we make to affect a balance, gets stuck. It gets stuck in the on position. So histamine production is cranking along, and there is supposed to be a counterbalance. To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, and this is true in our body. So when histamine gets turned on to go out and deal with a threat, our body is also supposed to produce antihistamine. It's supposed to bring that back under control. So off on, that's happening all the time in our bodies. We cannot identify the on switch as an evil because it's part of this design. It's perfect. It's a perfect design. There's nothing wrong with histamine. The problem is when histamine gets stuck in the on switch, and we do not have a healthy body system that's producing or triggering the off switch. So nettles is one of those things we can put into our body. Freeze-dried nettles, from everything I've ever studied, is a little bit different in its action. And so it has even more to do for us than just regular nettles. It's something that we're going to experiment with on the farm here now that we have a freeze dryer. We're going to offer that to some of our allergy customers and see if that doesn't help too. But I have nettles in here as a natural antihistamine. Dandelion leaf and root, though root is really strong for the liver, and I like it for the liver. Both parts of the dandelion are great for the liver, the kidneys, for cleaning our filters, and they can be helpful here. And wild yam is another plant, although it is on, if you watch Susan Leopold's talk, it is one that we watch because it's losing habitats, one of our native medicinals here in Ohio, in the Midwest. And the root of that is used, and we just use it sparingly and source it correctly. Eleuthero, or Eleutherococcus synticosus, is an adaptogen that's a really nice one to use for allergies. All of our adaptogens are definitely something that I talk a lot about. I will continue to explore more and more in the coming years, and you would be wise to look into them. Adaptogens are a class of herbs that you can use pretty much in anybody's body, even if they have a lot of medication, even if they are very weak. Adaptogens tend to not cause side effects in a vast majority of the population. The more you use it, the more you get from them, and they tend to be nutritive and lifting. They help the body handle stress. So this formula that I created and have been using has helped a lot of people because of what I'm going after. I'm not going after any one type of allergy. I've had it in honey for a long time, and people assumed a lot of times that it was the honey. Honey is great for seasonal allergies, but I'm going to give you the part of that people don't typically tell you. Honey has to be raw for it to work as an allergy preventive. Otherwise, if it's a cooked honey, it's going to create inflammation. It is actually a toxin. So it causes your body to send out, circle the wagons and go after a threat. Raw honey is what you have to use. If you're going after a seasonal allergy and you're just treating with honey, you need it to be local, and local means anywhere within, so here in Ohio, anywhere within the same sort of things blooming at about the same sort of time. So I'm in central Ohio. I can use a honey almost all the way down to Cleveland, or sorry, almost all the way down to Cincinnati and almost all the way up to Cleveland. It's a big space that people are raising honey that's going to be collected from a sort of the same stuff at sort of the same time. I can't use North Carolina honey for a local offering, but I can use it if it's raw as a benefit to my body. So it needs to be local, it needs to be raw, and if I'm using it for a specific type of allergy, it has to be harvested at the same time as that plant is blooming. So if I have an aster allergy, it's not going to do me any good. I mean, it's still going to be good for me, but I'm not going to have the same allergy punch if I use a honey that was harvested in the spring when the maples were blooming, because there isn't any aster in that. I'm going to do myself the best benefit by buying a local raw honey that was harvested after the aster bloom, so that it contains nectar and pollen from the aster plant. Then I have a shot at sort of inoculating myself. So I do have a blend still that the powder, you can buy the powder and blend it with your own raw honey, and then it becomes a tonic wherever you are, and it's even more effective because it's using your local raw honey. But honey is a specific tonic, and you have to be really specific about how you source it. This helps people because I'm targeting the liver. I am helping the liver to blow its nose so that it can go back to functioning the way it was intended to. I believe that we have the most long-term effect in the body when we pull up beside where the weakness is, and we figure out how to shore that up. And instead of taking over for the body or doing something because we think the body isn't capable, sort of taking control with something that's outside, what I believe is that we need to help the body get stronger or fix the deficit so that the body will go back to doing what it was designed to do. It is a definite different way of looking at healing your body, but I think I'm right. So you can analyze that. I think our bodies are designed perfectly. I don't think we need to fix them from the outside. And if we do need to put something like that, like shore up, create some scaffolding, it's a temporary thing. Long term, I want to help people with allergies so that their body doesn't need this anymore. I want people to stop using my products because their body got strong enough to stand on its own. That body is going to be self-sufficient. That body is going to move forward and take care of itself, except when some things happen. So let's talk about what else we can do in an acute situation, because that's usually the thing. You get out of control. You have something like my allergency, or maybe you use something else, and you forgot to take it. You forgot to use it to prepare for allergy season, which you should be really working on that a couple of months before your allergies typically hit. You may have forgotten to get into that, and now you're suffering. And once your body gets full-on histamine rage, you've got to calm it down. My mentor, Rosemary Gladstar, taught me a formulation of vitamins and minerals. So I will share that with you here. It is 1,000 milligrams ascorbic acid, that's vitamin C, 300 to 600 milligrams of sustained release pantothenic acid, which is B5, 25,000 units of vitamin A. Now, do not write that down as a vitamin. Your vitamin A needs to come from cod liver oil. Sorry, your grandmother was right. This is something that is a good supplement. We especially do it in the winter. I do think you can overdo even food supplementation. You can overdo. You should never do anything every day. But when our vitamin A levels get low in the body, we don't absorb our water-soluble vitamins and minerals. We have to have a good level of vitamin A in the body, but we cannot supplement with it with a pill or a synthetic vitamin A. That is dangerous. We can get to dangerous levels of vitamin A very quickly by using something that isn't wrapped in a food. So my family will use this, and I like the Carlson brand. I'm not affiliated with them. I like the Carlson brand lemon because it's really easy to find. Actually, it's hard to find the liquid, but you can find capsules. This you have to order online. So in your grocery store, you're likely to find capsules, but online you'll find the liquid. I like the lemon because it tastes like lemon, and I have less fighting with my family to get them to take it. A teaspoon of it, we keep it in the refrigerator. A teaspoon a day, most days. But when you are all histamine locked up, 25,000 units of equivalent. And so this in a teaspoon has 28% of my daily value, or daily required. I'm going to increase my dose of this so that I get to 25,000 units of vitamin A, whatever you're using. Again, do not use a pill. It needs to be a cod liver oil. An amino acid chelated calcium magnesium supplement with at least 200 milligrams calcium and 100 milligrams magnesium. If you find something that's got those items in it at greater levels, maybe it's got 300 milligrams calcium, fine, but make sure it's got 150 milligrams magnesium. It needs to be a 2-to-1 ratio for you to use the calcium appropriately and to be safe. Vitamin B6, ensure that you're taking a B complex that has B6. So maybe you're going to use brewer's yeast. Maybe you're going to use spirulina or bee pollen. You can use a capsule here, but make sure that it's a B complex. We don't want to overdo any one of the Bs for very long. Zinc, increase your zinc intake. I've got lots of recommendations on how to get this in food if you're a food person like me. I don't like pills and supplements. Add an organ meat to your weekly meal planning. This is a big one. Put some sort of organ meat into your family's plan once a week. And if you're under histamine attack, add that into your meal plan. You can also do a dehydrated liver supplement. You must reduce stress immediately. So again, I talked about Eleuthero being in this formula. Eleuthero is an adaptogen, and any of those adaptogens are going to help the body adapt to stress. Stress is a killer. Stress is a problem in a histamine attack. It's a problem in an allergy attack. You must reduce stress. Stress comes in a lot of forms: mental, emotional, physical. You've got to calm things down so that your body has room to take a breath and calm. Sit in a steam shower or do a steam bowl. That is a really good way to help calm things down. You can use thyme or oregano, a handful of that in your steam bowl. Breathing that in through your filters in your nose and your lungs can calm this down. So how long do you take this acute dosage? Really until things start to calm down. As soon as things start to calm down, go back to your daily supplementation. Take everything back down to normal levels, and probably keep your vitamin C going and your B complex going. That's always a good idea, and keep your zinc up. So some of the therapies that we can do to keep off an attack like this are steams. It is often a good idea to get into the habit of putting boiling water into a bowl and bringing a blanket or a towel down over the bowl so that you're in the tent and you're breathing in that steam. Breathe through your mouth and breathe through your nose to bring that moist air in. And I like to use regular herbs. Like I like to use real herbs, so thyme and oregano. If you must use an essential oil, please be aware that those are basically the pharmaceuticals of the herb world. They're highly concentrated, and so you must use a drop. Be very careful with them. Some of the other therapies, people will use a neti pot. In the past, when my kids were very little, I had one of the pots, looked like a little genie vase, and you would tip your face over the sink and it would go up and over, and it was this pretty little ceramic pot. And the first time I tried to use it with my son, he was maybe 3, and I should have known better, but I was desperate to help him, and he wasn't desperate to try this new therapy. And he flailed, and it went against the wall and just smashed into a million smithereens. Today we use one that's, you stand upright and squeeze. Never ever try and give a neti pot to a young child who has phobias about water and drowning because they're convinced that you're waterboarding them. Squeeze, there's one that you squeeze and stand upright and you feel much more in control. So anybody who has a phobia of water, that's a good one. Don't use neti pots when you are in an active infection or have congestion up here, because what goes up may not come down. Use a neti pot for allergies. If you go out, if you have seasonal allergies and you've gone out and done yard work, you've gone and mowed, make it a habit to come in and swish out your nose, because all of those allergens are sitting against the cilia inside your nasal passages, and the more they sit there, the more irritating they will be. Just get rid of them. Swish them out of there. There is a long-term game here, and it really involves controlling your histamine. There are vast numbers of us that are struggling with histamine intolerance. There are many who have been damaged through medications and injectables that have caused the body to constantly see threats where there are none. Histamine, like I said, is a good thing, but if it gets stuck in the on switch and we aren't able to clear it after the fact, or we can't shut off the faucet, it can be a really miserable situation, and histamine can become a toxin in and of itself. So there is a long game that is definitely something that I am exploring and sharing, with digestion being really key here. The frustrating thing is a lot of people are told, who struggle with histamine intolerance, they're told that they cannot have any ferments. And we've gone through a lot of fermentation in this 3-day summit. There are ferments that it appears as though histamine intolerant people can do. They need to be anaerobic ferments. You need to be very careful about eating food immediately when it's made. We need to be doing anaerobic ferments, and only a pinch a day. You can do bone broth, but there's a special way that the bone broth needs to be prepared. We do need to build back the digestive health of folks who have allergies, whether they are mildly irritating or life-threatening. Building back the digestion is key. Supporting the liver, making sure that your endocrine system is working appropriately is great. We have to do those things, but digestion is the really, really critical place. You have to build your digestion back so that you are digesting your food appropriately, you are getting the nutrition out, and you have a very multifaceted gut flora neighborhood. We need lots of diversity there. The very fact of having a diverse gut flora has been shown to be a big key in clearing excess histamine after we've had an episode of excitation in the body. There are bacteria that are supposed to live in our gut, that it's their whole job to help that bringing down the histamine, the off switch. Our body has to stop producing histamine, and then we have to clear it. And without that good bacteria, without a healthy gut, we're stuck with histamine constantly going around creating inflammation. And that inflammation is then seen in other symptoms. That's where, we have diabetes is inflammation, and arthritis is inflammation, and autoimmune is inflammation. So much comes from that point, and not all of it's coming out of our histamine and out of our allergy system, but boy, a lot of it is, and it can certainly contribute. So understanding how to help someone in your life with allergies is really key. There are a lot of plants that can come along and support. There are foods to avoid and foods to include. There are supplements that can be helpful. And then there's lifestyle. Anytime we talk about a protocol, we're really looking at all of this. We're looking at spiritual, emotional, mental, physical from a standpoint of supplements and herbs and food, and we're looking at the way we move our body and how physically active we are. All of that goes together to create a protocol. There is no plant that I can tell you, there is no pill that I can give you that will make it all go away. There are things that will cover up your symptoms maybe for a little bit and make you think you don't have a problem. But if you watched another one of my videos, you'll see that leaves the fire burning in the house. there is still a fire burning, and it will burn down other wings of the building while you ignore it. So it's better to get to the root, start working on your digestion. If you stick around in the membership, we are going to keep pumping out that information. The community is going to keep talking about and exploring how we build digestion in a really diverse way, because everybody's body is different and everybody's struggling from a different aspect. But for this talk, hopefully the acute suggestion and the therapies and some of the herbs that you can use to help are a good place to start. And hopefully you'll find a community that you're interested in going deeper on. So thanks for joining me.